Hey, what's going on, Noel Nation? CJ Wilson here with DoakTalk. Spring practice is officially over for FSU. Everything is shut down in that aspect, but the transfer portal is officially open and is in full swing. I do expect some activity for FSU via the transfer portal as far as departures pretty soon for sure. And there's going to be some additions for FSU that they want to address. So I want to go over some positions that I saw based off spring practice and hearing some things and seeing some practices and also seeing the spring game, some positions that I feel like FSU, in my opinion, should attack in the transfer portal. Then we'll kind of go from there. Before we get started, make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel. If you're not a member of the DoakTalk community, go ahead and join, man. It's a big time family, and welcome if you haven't. But again, like this video and subscribe to the channel. The first position I'm going to discuss as far as a possible addition for FSU is offensive tackle. You guys saw the spring game and things like that. I do think the right tackle position should be addressed, or hell, the left tackle position, just a tackle in general. If you could get a pretty good offensive tackle, starter quality, that type of deal, really good fit within the transfer portal within this window, I think it can really lift FSU in a really positive way as far as the ceiling of the offensive line room. Darius Washington is the best offensive lineman by far. Jeremiah Byers struggled a little bit as far as offensive tackle in the spring game from what I saw. Of course, there's been some struggles throughout some inconsistencies rather throughout his career at FSU. So we could get a guy that could possibly man the left and move Darius Washington to the right. I really feel like that will take the offensive line to another level. I think it's going to be a pretty good unit going forward for the 2024 season. And if we can make a move on a premier, not I'm gonna say a premier offensive tackle that could turn the room from pretty good to a damn great room for FSU for this 2024 season. So offensive tackle is a position I'll be looking out for the transfer portal for FSU. Tight end. I think tight end is another position we definitely should look at as far as being aggressive to add. There's been inconsistencies as far as catching the balls and things like that. Kyle Morlock has been up and down. Hasn't been consistent catching the ball, to be completely honest with you. Has some flashes, but again, as far as him going from a backup for the 23 season to the full-time starter for the 2024 season, we need to have that next step taken, and that step has not been taken as of yet. We like what we saw out of Jackson West, the tight end number 48, made some very good strides during the winter workouts and spring ball. I think he's going to be a factor for FSU within the tight end room. And of course, Landon Thomas, he's your potential star of the unit. The former 5-star recruit, just a young guy, true freshman. Like I said, just got on campus a couple months ago. Should be going through the rest of his high school process as far as prom, graduation, all that type of deal. But I do think Landon Thomas is going to be a star. Just need to develop a little bit more from a physical standpoint, getting some weight, getting built by storms and things like that. So if we could add a tight end to the position room, it'll be really good for us. I do hate that we lost Marquise and Douglason, Biscuit, transferring to Arizona State. He would have been primed for a way bigger role this upcoming year. Hell, to be honest with you, he could have been number one tight end and been the starter. But losing him definitely hurt from a blocking aspect as well. So I do feel like we need to look at the tight end position during this post-spring practice transfer portal wave. Wide receiver, you guys saw it. You guys saw it in the spring game. You guys been hearing about it throughout spring practices within reports and things like that. Inconsistency as far as dropping balls and things like that. We got to be consistent from a day-to-day basis. And if you can't catch the ball consistently, then you just can't really play wide receiver, period, on any type of level. And that's something we have to do. We saw Malik Benson. He looks like he's going to be primed to be the number one receiver for FSU. Made a lot of plays for us. He was the only guy in the spring game that consistently caught the ball and consistently got open against a very good defensive back group and created separation. So I do feel like FSU, to be honest with you, this may be my number one priority for FSU within the transfer portal, regardless of position, receiver. This is my number one priority for FSU, wide receiver. I feel like we've got to be aggressive in attacking the transfer portal for wide receivers. There are some very good receivers in the transfer portal that had production at their previous school. So I feel like that's the type of guy we need to add for this room: experience and production. We added speed and things like that during the offseason. We're doing the first transfer portal window. Now we need to add a guy that just does the job, catch the ball, things like that consistently day in and day out, create separation. So this is my number one add for FSU as far as the total positions. The wide receiver. I feel like this should be the number one priority for sure for FSU once things settle for them, as far as exit meetings and things like that, and moving forward to roster management. Defensive tackle. I love what I saw from Daryl Jackson and those guys. Of course, Josh Farmer has been hurt, but if we could grab another defensive tackle to compete with Daniel Lyons and Grady Kelly for that third/fourth defensive tackle for the rotational standpoint, I feel like that unit, if we do that, that unit will be, I think it's going to be one of the better units in the country for sure. But it wouldn't be a doubt in my mind if we could add a surefire defensive tackle with experience that can, be your third, fourth, and because if you guys know, as far as defensive linemen, we rotate them a lot because you have to be fresh on the defensive line. That's a position rather that you're grinding and you're banging every single play, right? Literally every single play. So you want to have fresh guys that could come in and be healthy and fresh throughout the course of the game to give the maximum output. So if we could add another defensive tackle, I really think that could take that room into an elite status. The defensive line from the defensive end, defensive tackle, is very good right now. If we could add one more piece, I really feel like that room could be elite. I don't foresee any drop off, too big of a drop off from the 23 season to the 24 season as far as defensive line production. We're FSU, right? Great defensive linemen, defensive ends, defensive tackles is what we do. So I don't, long as, like I said, long as Adam Fuller for sure, because he has the mindset as far as, being aggressive again to the quarterback. But you got Odell Haggins and John Pachulis. Long as those guys are running the ship, the production in that room would be second to none. Linebacker. Of course, we want to add another linebacker for sure. This was a position group that was one of the most important positions to add for FSU during the December transfer portal window. Ended up getting Sean Murphy out of Alabama. That was one linebacker. We wanted to add one more. It was a couple kids in December that we were in communication with, but that I guess didn't materialize at that point. And those were guys that needed to kind of graduate for the graduate in the spring rather before they can make their next move for the next university. So we do have the spring window open. I do foresee FSU rather being aggressive for the linebacker position. There's a lot of good guys in there as well. Some guys that were still in the portal from December that conversations have carried on during that time frame. So linebacker position is one I feel like we're going to definitely add for sure. Go with DJ Lundy and those guys. Blake Nicholson looked pretty good in the spring game, but we do need one more linebacker from an experience standpoint because the room is pretty young aside from DJ Lundy. So from an experienced linebacker with production that is played at their previous school. So I think linebacker's position as well. Now this position is probably the last on the totem pole. Not probably, this is the last on the totem pole for me. And it's just more so of a luxury as a more so a luxury want versus need, and that's possibly another defensive back or another safety. And I think FSU, the numbers have to work out perfectly for FSU as far as not being on the crunch for the 85 limit, scholarship, having some wiggle room and things like that. We got to see how many guys depart from FSU prior after spring practice, and they have the exit meetings with Mark Norvell and have those conversations. There's going to be a plethora of guys that's going to enter the transfer portal for sure. So we'll see what the numbers are like and how low FSU gets below the 85, and then we'll be able to see how many realistically FSU could add for this spring transfer portal window. But again, it had to be a premium defensive back. I forget the kid's name, but it was a defensive back. He was number one safety in this class. Was a true freshman for Texas A&M last year. Made a lot of big plays for A&M last year. He stated that Florida State and Oregon were the two teams that he wanted to hear from brought in the transfer portal. It'd have to be a defensive back like that for me to sign off on. Like I said, a premium athlete, a premium player at the position, and the numbers will have to work for FSU to add another defensive back. So me being, I guess, selfishly a former defensive back and things like that, but that's the absolute last position that we should address. Again, the numbers have to work and have to be that type of player. So here we go with the transfer portal is going to be kicking up pretty soon for FSU. Make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel. And also in the comments, let me know what position you feel like FSU should attack within the transfer portal. If it's not a position now listed below, let me know in the comments what position you feel like FSU needs moving forward. to compete for the ACC championship, compete for the playoffs, and the national championship for the 2024 season. Again, like this video, subscribe to the channel. Go Noles.